Aloha and welcome back to Wanderous, the show that makes me hungry when I record more than one a day. Today we're going to talk about probably my favorite free museum in Paris. Welcome to Wanderous. I'm your host, Andrew Crusoe, and I can't wait to talk about this place. It's so cool. Okay, so I'm going to spoil it. The museum is called Le Petit Palais. Le Petit Palais is a wonderful institution. It's pretty much downtown. It's north of the river, and you can just waltz in. You can waltz in, and not only is it free, it's also air conditioned, which is very nice. This is one of the memories I have of this place, is coming in from, I don't know, it was warm, it was hot, coming into air-conditioned, beautiful bubble of art and cool air. This was not why I went. I went because I wanted to enjoy some of the free things, some of the odd art. I took a picture. Oh my God, I'll get to that. Some very bizarre art, and I figured I want to do something. I'd been, doing different things. I'd just been. I was looking at how much Eiffel Tower would be, and I was like, I want to save some money. And I thought I would start with something free, and I was not disappointed. I took a fair amount of videos, of one or two of which I will link in the show notes. I will put those on. I put those on social media a while back. I really liked this guy named Jean Carré. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He made these ceramic monsters, which were very cute. They were super cute. They reminded me of like tiny gargoyles, and I took a lot of pictures of that for some reason. They were just, I don't know. They were just fun. And this is one of these museums that you could wander in for 10 hours, Not only sculpture, of which there was no shortage of, but stuff by Chauvin. I don't know if you know Chauvin, Chauvin, art people will appreciate. Wow. I mean, the liveliness of the light of these I'm definitely including this too. The Chauvin painting was killer. There's a lot of glimpses and photos and things that I can share from this. But of course, these are all going to be for the supporters. If you support the show at $10 a month or more, you're going to get a lot of beautiful stuff on Wednesday, including kind of a sexy photo, because it's French. But I don't expect everyone to support the show. I don't expect for everyone to have access to that. So I'm going to try to describe. You walk in and it basically feels like a palace. And there are vaulted ceilings. There's different wings. They have a sculpture courtyard kind of area. It's right there in the name, Le Petit Palais, the small palace. That's what it means. There are incredible illuminated. There's incredible paintings. The landscapes just soaring above your head. There is just a sense of abundance and hugeness that I was very surprised by. And I spent a while in there. I'm going to see how long was I in there? I will also describe one of the paintings because I think it will bother and disturb some of you in an amusing way. So there is, I think it's fascinating, not just disturbing, but also fascinating. But yes, disturbing. Fascinating. I come across this set of china, this plate. They write these porcelain plates that have it's a triptych. It's three of them as a painting. I'm going to definitely include that. And on it there's several people, and they're standing on a forest path, and everything's fine. A great color palette. Everything's pretty fine. They're by a little stream, except that in the middle there's a woman. There's a woman giving birth, and the child is coming out at a real odd angle. It's just kind of like if you describe childbirth to a kid. I mean, no offense to who did this. It's a heck of a thing. It's by Louis Morales. There we go, Louis Morales. Thanks, Louis. It's kind of haunting, but the real interesting part is, so the woman who is nude has her arms above her head, And her arms have just turned into, over the course, she has no hands, it turns into tree branches. It turns into a tree. And there are tree branches coming out of her hair, coming out of her head. I don't know what it means. I should have probably paid more attention in art history class. It translates as the Virgin and the Child. That's the name of the piece. How do you pronounce that?
Vierge à l'enfant.
Vierge à l'enfant. A is like and. L'enfant. Infant. Isn't that something though? I was saying about how the words are similar. Sometimes it's good. Like it starts to click. If you're there for a while, I experienced it started to click a little more, but I like language. I actually misspoke. It's actually saying it's actually oil painting on wood. So the plates were wood. And I took a picture of this very odd scene. That was really one of my first impressions of the museum. Also like interesting cherubim and seraphim, but I still think that the monsters were fantastic. The Jean Caret's monsters were really, really entertaining, really lovingly made, and the Chauvin painting was definitely a highlight. And the Monet sunset. So I know this was a bit of a rambly episode so far, but go to Petit Palais. It's fantastic. You can even go toward the back, and there is an inner courtyard, which I took an interesting video of. There's an inner courtyard that has a resting area, and there's a garden, and it's very lovely. And again, it's all free. There is a donation bin, which I thought was sort of a work of art in and of itself, partly because euros are so gosh darn colorful, and not just euros, like what do we got? Kroners, which I believe is Swedish. Oh, wow. It's just the money, the paper money in this donation bin, in this clear plastic donation bin. Drawings that children had made aside, there were a few pencil drawings on white paper. It's very entertaining. You've got these blue, red, orange, yellow, green pieces of paper, and then intermixed is the boring American money. Because the American money, especially the ones, it's just all green. It was very drab compared to this very pretty European money. The euros were much more pretty, although it's gotten a bit better now. I mean, the American money now, the $100 bill is just got a kind of a blue band through it, a ribbon. And the $5 bill is a big purple 5 now. And the 10 is reddish, mostly. The 20 is still green. They're not letting that go. The 50 is still very green when I last checked. But they're trying to introduce some, the 5 is purple. The 10 is red. They're trying to introduce a bit of it. But it's still very, very drab. Who knew that maybe the primary reserve fiat currency in the world, the US dollar, is the most boring one to look at. How about that? Although I will say there is cotton in there. It is very durable as paper money goes. And I would learn later on, not every country can afford to invest in its fiat paper currency so well. Like Sri Lankan money, bless their hearts, it's not gonna live through being washed in the washing machine, whereas American money will. It's designed to be abused. I'm not going to read into that. So I had a couple hours really in Petit Palais, and I started wandering around, and you come across a statue of Georges Pompidou, things like this. I thought it was funny. There was a rock, and I saw this around Paris. People would write "Vive Paris," like "Long live Paris," on rocks. It was really kind of charming. So because I started that day at a reasonable time, I still had time to explore, and there was daylight. I mean, there was quite a bit of daylight. It was late August. It was fine. But I find myself in front of Hôtel de Ville, which is the city hall of Paris, which is this really large, ornate building with the IOC, the Olympic rings were out in front of it. I suppose it was because they were preparing for the Olympics to be held in Paris, which would happen 2 years hence from that time. almost exactly 2 years hence from when I was there. But I ran into, this is something fun that will happen. And there, the front of Hotel de Ville is basically, it's a public square, right? It's a public space. So people do stuff, and they do funny things. And people will sit and read. People will, there's not that much seating, but people will put out things. And sometimes people will blow bubbles, apparently. No, you did not misunderstand me. So there was this guy who had a huge, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like 2 pieces of bamboo. I'm 90% sure this is bamboo with string, a hoop, we could say, a hoop of string affixed to the ends of these 2 pieces of bamboo. And then he had a big bucket of green liquid. And he used this hoop to create the largest darn bubbles you'd ever seen. And this attracted many children. And I have a video of this as well. It's very cool. I like this. I like this photo too. These bubbles were like meters long. And it was such a sweet moment. The kids were really having so much fun. Kids of all shapes and sizes and colors. And it was just really, a world city kind of vibe. It was very much a weird sense of unity through bubbles. Nearby, I also came across an accordion player on the bridge over the river. I got to include this photo for the people who support the show. There's this woman looking at the accordion player. This woman is looking over at him with such disdain, and I don't know why. And I'm gonna color correct the heck out of this photo just to highlight how funny it is. But the whole reason I was walking around after Petit Palais was because I wanted to see Notre Dame. Now, 3 years, I believe it was 2 or 3 years before that, there was a huge fire, which you've probably heard about, that destroyed a lot of the surrounding building, not necessarily the core, but there was a ton of damage done in Notre Dame. But I'm like, well, I'm here. I'm in walking distance. Maybe I can see something. And boy, it was such a challenging thing. I was, there's an island kind of in the middle of that area where Saint Chapelle is and all these other, Notre Dame is on an island. It's called Ile de la Cité. Okay, so city island, I guess is probably what that means. And they had these blockades. Everything, they had all these walls were up, and I had a heck of a time. It took me another, like 20 minutes of walking around to get around to where I could actually see some of it. I had to cross another bridge, get back around, and finally got a view of some of the ramparts and all of the angles of all of the stones and the things and the flower, what would you call that? The rose windows and the steep, the buttresses and all these things. I also kind of loitered around Shakespeare and Company, which is a little breakfast cafe thing, which I almost ate at, but I ended up photographing more. I really like this bit. This is so random. Outside, so I'm looking at, the remnants and the largest scaffold setup I've ever seen in my life. Probably some world record for scaffolding on an ancient building. They're in massive cranes. A huge deal. I took a video over that. I'll try to find that for show notes. Very sad what happened there. But I turn around and I see on the outside of this Shakespeare and Company cafe a quote from Alice in Wonderland. Alice laughed. "One can't believe in possible things." "I dare say you haven't had much practice," said the Queen. "When I was your age, I always did it for half an hour a day. Why, sometimes I believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast." One of my favorite quotes from Lewis Carroll, actually. And then below it says, "Homemade bagels, salads, soups, pastries, fresh from Bob's Bake Shop." So I guess there was a couple things. It was a bit confusing, though, because above that, it said Shakespeare and Company, so I don't know what to believe. There are a lot of things that are vaguely... So, Bob's Bake Shop. It must have been inside. It must have been... Yeah. It must have been inside of Shakespeare and Company. And there was a great dining area outside of this with old fountains. Really, like, people who support this show will certainly get some wonderful photos of the real authentic side of Paris. We're also coming up to what would be sort of a teleport moment for me into what felt like a movie. And we're also coming up to me actually going up into Eiffel Tower. That's coming up very soon. Before that, I wandered into a Tibetan shop where, and it's amazing what you can find in Paris. I realized I'm sort of a magnet for Nepalese and Tibetan things. I mean, who knows why. And I wandered into this shop, and this was the first time I was seeing, because you don't come across this so much in America, authentic handmade singing bowls, big ones and small ones, and just really amazing tapestries and all these things. And I had a lovely conversation because I was feeling a bit tired. It was very much, I wandered into sort of a hustle and bustle sort of area of Paris, and I took refuge in this little shop where no one else was there except for the owner, a very kind woman who talked with me for a little bit, like 15 minutes. And I was saying, oh yes, I'm new to Paris. And I think she was from Nepal, as I recall, and had started this business in Paris, and was just a amazing little energy shift. It did feel like stepping into a different country. It was definitely more earthy. It was very grounded and calm, very deep calm. And the crazy thing about Paris is 20 minutes later, I was standing in a cathedral and experiencing a different type of calm. There's just so much. There's just so much of everything. There's so much of everything in Paris. The lesson here is when you get to Paris, just set aside time to wander and be weird. Okay, just wander and be weird. Don't second guess what you're doing. Don't second guess where you are. As long as you have, a cell plan, get it through. I mean, yeah. If you're going to England first, get it through 3. They have a pretty Smarty, what it's called. Smarty is a good deal, and I'm sure there are ones you can get. My Smarty SIM card worked in the mainland of Europe and was, I don't know, like $12 a month. It was pretty cheap. But not as cheap as where I would go in Asia. And of course, that little shop, which I got the business card to, I still have that somewhere. That little shop was very much a foreshadowing of the places I would visit in the coming months and years. So I'll leave it there for now. I hope you'll come back. I hope you'll subscribe and hear about the unforgettable, magical, crazy pants. Like, wow, Eiffel Tower has some hidden stuff that you don't hear about very much. And like I said in the last episode, there are whole levels and promenades and things, but also hidden bits that I was able to preserve and photograph, and advice I will share with you on. Actually, I'm going to share with you the cheapest way to get the best view, and also some tips on when you should do it. So please come back next week for that advice, for that story rather. And once again, oh my gosh, they're so colorful. These shots from Eiffel Tower, I forget how colorful Paris is. It really was quite a colorful evening. Wow. What is that? What is going on? Oh, I think that is okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I guess I'll see you next time. If you have any questions, please go to patreon.com/HelloCrusoe and leave a comment. I'm very much open to questions. And please subscribe on Spotify if you haven't. And again, following on Patreon is free. Spotify is free. This podcast is still a labor of love. And I really, really appreciate all of you who are supporting this show for any amount via Patreon. It really means a lot, and it powers this show to keep going forward. So mahalo, mahalo. And merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Aloha.